Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Meadows and Makers podcast. I'm your host, Greg Dowd. Welcome to my show. And this is a show all about trying to give a white pill in the midst of all the craziness that's happening in our world. Some things that I'm doing that I'm working on myself to become more self-reliant, and I try to share that with you guys every week. Some of my projects, try to bring on some cool guests for interviews, people that are doing similar stuff, trying to escape the matrix, so to say. So lots have been going on, guys. Lots has happened. I've been away for a week from doing the podcast, and I have been really busy by going to help a friend, solo miner, at his place and helping him to install a solar power system. We had some issues with that, which I'm going to talk about tonight. Everything did not go that smoothly during the install, so we had some lessons learned that I'm going to share with you guys on that whole situation. So when I got back from that, that basically we were really busting our asses to try to get everything hooked up and ready to go for my buddy solo miner before we left, and we really didn't have. We really should have given ourselves a couple more days to do this right and get it all figured out and to test everything before we kicked on some of the power that was going into the inverters, and we ended up having an issue with the inverters that we were trying to use. The way that we had them set up, they were supposed to communicate with each other in parallel and do all this great stuff and give, everything should be unicorns and rainbows, and well, it just wasn't that case. So I'll let you guys know about that as we get further into it. I can't spend too much time on here tonight because I gotta prepare for going out of town soon, and there's some stuff that I need to do, including installing a new automated chicken door on my chickshaw system so that when I have somebody come and watch over the chickens, that they don't have to worry about opening and closing the door every night. So I'm going to get that installed right after jumping off here, but being away for a week, I wanted to make sure that everybody kind of got an update on everything that I've been doing and working on, and just kind of share some of those experiences with you guys. So yeah, thank you for joining me here. And there's all kinds of craziness happening in the world. I've been catching up with the Grand Theft World podcast, which is probably too spicy to talk about especially on the YouTube. So I'm sticking to what I've been up to, and I'm going to be sharing that with you guys tonight. So another thing that I've been up to is farm sitting, and the farm sitting gig has come to me through just talking to my friends about doing it. It actually was one of our folks in our Freedom Cell group. They were looking for somebody that could farm sit, and I volunteered, and we set up an arrangement for that. After I went and did a week there at their place, and I started to talk to some other friends I have that have farms, and I got brought on to help out with their farm as well. So they were interested in leaving town to go to a wedding, pretty cool wedding actually. What's up, Rondon? You'll be here in a few minutes. Good to see you. Crimson Clad, good to see you. I've been seeing all the cool stuff happening on Twitter. Yeah, thank you. Um, yeah, I've been trying to post all the stuff. I got a lot more pictures, and I think I'm gonna reserve those exclusively for doing some blogs on Hive because they're kind of detailed. They kind of want to go into some details and stuff and share that with you guys. so so I think I'm gonna leave those off Twitter and they're gonna go on Hive. So So I will share some of that stuff with you guys. I've got kind of got like several irons in the fire right now, but my grandpa is turning 100 years old coming up here, and we're going to go visit him coming up here in a little bit. So pretty big deal. I'm making it to 100. I hope I live that long. And I really want to make a meme that's like, I hope we have a better future than going outside and looking up at the sky and saying, "Wow, the killer drone swarms aren't that bad today." So anyway, that's what I'm hoping for. Hopefully, 50 or so years into the future or further than that I can at least say that I help push the world into a more positive direction, um, in my own way. And I think that just being radically independent in the world that we live in today, because there's so many things that are pulling you in different directions and wanting to control what you're thinking, and especially some of these like AI filters and things. That was one of the things I was looking at, is like how people's perception of themselves is really messed up because they have all these crazy filters now that can do machine learning and make you look like perfect and unflawed and stuff. And it's like, when that filter's not on, they're just like can't accept their own image and things like that. So, we're running up on kind of a dystopian type world that we're entering into with all the technologies and things that, I don't really, I think technology is a double-edged sword, and it's really how we're utilizing the different technologies. But I still, at the same time, you really need to, you know, be creating things ethically and with sound, thoughts on how these things are going to play out, especially when it comes to these things with AI. There's, you know, uh, all this stuff with AI now. It's like it can fool you on the research that people are doing. You can write like full research papers and stuff, and hearing stories about how that these AIs are like they're having to get shut down because they're going a little out of control, like we're beyond the scope that they believe that they should operate, and they're having to give these AI some lobotomies. So who knows? Maybe what do you guys think? Will we end up in a future where my robot drone swarm is fighting other people's robot drone swarms? We'll just be fighting robots or something like that, or people get altered and now they're cyborgs and things like that. It almost seems like it's heading in that direction. It's like kind of this technological era where technology is integrated into biology and stuff. And I really don't think that's a good idea. Personally, I know some people seem stoked about the idea, but I really think that we should utilize technology and make it our master, not being mastered by it. And some of these things, I really don't think that we're thinking it through entirely. So it needs to be rolled out with a lot more caution. But there are a lot of interesting benefits that we could get from some of these technologies on being maybe unleashing more creativity and being able to, reduce some of the workload of certain things that we've done in the past, and maybe we could be more productive with it. But some of the things that we're seeing now, it doesn't seem like it's helping with too much with increasing our production and abundance, but more about creating more of our own individual misery, or putting us into an alternative type view of reality. And I don't think that that is the best approach towards the development of technologies. So we live in strange times. We live in interesting times. It's definitely a wild world that we're living in. But I think that, through our own work and through our own individual pursuits, and being as individual as possible, and not going into any kind of groupthink or anything like that, that will be the salvation for the future. We really have to, as people, really got to do our own research. We got to look into things. We got to become ruggedly reliant, in my opinion, or at least find the networks of people that can work with you together to be able to supply everything that you need for the coming future. And that's what I want to talk about, I guess, mainly tonight, is, I guess, through these efforts that I'm doing locally with, we're just working with the people in my network, and being a person that they can rely on to, watch after their homesteads and things like that. That, building up relationships with folks. And, at the last, when I got done with the farm sitting on my recent one, which was milking goats for the first time, which was really interesting. I had a fun time doing that. It was a little challenging for sure for me, and I probably didn't do the best job, but I gave it my best shot at trying to milk all this herd of goats. And goats have a mind of their own. They don't if they don't want to go get milked, they give you some problems. And so that was a big issue for me doing this. But at the end of the farm sitting, I was like, I take multiple forms of payment, crypto, liquor. You got whatever you got, man. I'll barter with it. I'll even take some of this goat milk home with me. That'd be great. Unfortunately, so they were gonna add in the goat milk as like a bonus, as an incentive. So if I got enough goat milk, that I could take some home with me. But unfortunately, the ladies didn't want to give as much milk for me as I've heard that they've been able to get from their goats. So it is what it is. I basically was able to get enough milk to keep their bottle baby goats fed and to keep them sustained while I was there. So it was pretty sad. It was a pretty sad amount of milk that I was able to collect. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot during the process, and the goats, I think, started to warm up to me a little bit. So it was a good experience. I have another skill, I guess, I could put on my resume there. Milked with a machine, didn't milk by hand, so I'm familiar with the milking machine, at least that my friend had on their property. So so it was a cool experience. I'll talk about with you guys tonight. Like I said, I can only be on here for probably about an hour tonight because I need to get to install this automated chicken door, which I really like, and I want to talk because I was over at my other friend's place, farm sitting for them, and they had one on their chickshaw set up, and I really liked. And it turns out that this product comes from like Slovenia or something like that, because I ordered it directly on their website, and it was shipped via DHL. So They also sell it on Amazon if you don't want to, get something shipped from Slovenia. But I bypassed Amazon and just went directly to their website and did that. Let's see, paper. Papa Bert 21. How many chickens do you keep? I incubated and hatched 7 chickens of my own, and then my neighbor hatched me about 7 chickens, so I got 14 in total. Uh, 14 that survived. I had a couple of chicks die on me because they were kind of early, I guess. They came out of their eggs early, and they had attached yolk sacs, and I tried to keep them going, but they didn't make it. So I've got 14 in total right now. So just some backyard chickens, and still don't know which ones are roosters and which ones. We have kind of an idea now that they're old enough. They were all hatched in January. So where are we at? Where are we at now? In April. So I think by July that they should be laying eggs, and we should be able to tell fairly soon now, at least within another month or two, that definitely which ones are roosters. And I guess I will be selecting the rooster that isn't that much of a jerk to keep, and then the rest are going to be chicken stew, I guess. Papa Bert, do you use heat lamps to keep them warm? So after they're chicks and they've gone through and got all their feathers, you don't have to put a heat lamp on them. Especially before they're laying, they'll all cuddle together and they'll keep warm that way, and their feathers help keep them warm. So as long as they're out of the wind and the rain, that's the main thing to think about when you're raising chickens. And they can be cold or they can be wet, but they can't be cold and wet, and that'll not be so good for them. But yeah, once they get outside of being little chicks, that you don't really need a heat lamp. I did have a heat lamp on them when they were little baby chicks for a little while they were in their brooder. So they need the brooder and the heat lamp while they're little chickens. They're little baby chicks for a little while, and I guess I had them in there for maybe 15 days or so. It was probably longer than that. I probably had them in there for a good solid month, and I did have a heat lamp on them during that time. Just to be sure. And then we introduced them outside and into their chicken coop, which is the chickshaw. And I posted a picture of that on my Twitter earlier today that I can show you guys. But let me pull that up, and I can show you everything that's been going on. So here is my chickshaw. Let me see if this is pulled up. Yep. This is the chickshaw, and we are implementing the Billy Bonds system of the chicken tractor on steroids. So this whole system, it's got a Premier One electric poultry netting. It's like a 100-foot net that we put in a spiral so that the net would double up around them, so that it would make it harder for them to go outside of the electric net. So we've got that Premier One net on solar electric net, keeping them safe from predators. And then we have a net over the top of them to keep them safe from the aerial predators. And they free range inside of their little area that they have there. And then we just continue to move them around the yard so that they have a fresh area to be in, and they can continue to live the chickenness of their chickeninity. And we're working on building compost in this ring right here. It's just made out of hardware cloth. It's a 1.5 feet tall and 6 feet in diameter, and it's just made with the, I think it's like 1/2 inch hardware cloth, or it might be less. It might be 1/4 inch hardware cloth, which is the whole size of the hardware cloth. And you just make a ring out of that, and that you fill that up to the top, and that's 6 yards of compost, and you keep adding your feed into there, and you keep adding more compost material, layer by layer, every day you feed them, and it builds up this big pile. And then when you're ready to move them, that you're gonna take that ring out of there, and you're gonna move it to your new location, and you're gonna pile up that pile, and you're gonna move it downhill with the chickens. And what that does is it's like worms and other little bugs and stuff that's helping to break down the compost is all in there, and then the chickens can scratch through that, and they actually can help break down the compost faster. One of the piles that we put out here, we also take the bedding from their tractor and we throw it in with the compost pile. And one of the lessons learned that we found out is that you got to keep it really wet, because that water is what helps the bacteria to break down, or the microorganisms to help break down the compost. And if it's not wet, it won't help break down into good black compost. So you got to make sure that stays really watered down, and that it's nice and soaked every day if you can. And we use rainwater that we collect, so we're constantly doing that, and been seeing some good results. The first pile that we put out there, the chickens have all scratched through. We raked it up. My dad raked it up a couple times because I've been gone so much. And now you look at it, it looks like it's turned into good compost. So pretty excited about that, about making the compost, because it is one of the more difficult things, especially like when you're talking about starting your own seeds, planting your gardens. Like everybody, you need compost constantly for that. Like it helps with the health of your plants and everything. So good compost is more and more difficult to find, especially with, hearing stories from other people that have gardens and things like that, where they bought, some compost mix, kind of commercial compost mixes, and they're having issues with it, and it's affecting the health of their plants. Their plants aren't growing so great. So, decided to implement this system so that we know that we have some good high quality compost that we created on our own property. So I've been really excited about the results that we're getting so far with that. So let's see, Papa Bert 21. I had 20 or so chickens for about 2 weeks. A mink got into the shed and killed all of them in one night. Man, I know what you're talking about, because I've lost a few chickens to neighbor dogs in particular. That the dogs would come over during the nighttime and just eat a chicken. And so that's the big issue with chickens, is that everything likes to eat them. Thank you, Papa Bert 21. Good setup. Thank you. Everything likes to eat chickens. We like to eat chickens. All the animals like to eat chickens. Everybody's a chicken eater. And so it's one of the more difficult things of chickens. They're super easy to take care of once you got certain things in place. Like we put this little nipple water system in place, where it's got 5 of these little nipple things on this bucket. And I think it's like a 3-gallon or 4-gallon water bucket. And then they can just go over there and drink from that as they want to. So that's all automated. I got a feeder, a larger feeder for them. So like when I go out of town, that I can fill that up, and with food. I'm still gonna have a friend come and check on them, but pretty much they should be like pretty hands off because the automated door is gonna open and close for them at night to keep them safe. And then they'll have all the water they need and all the food that they'll need to just forage for and get out of their feeder. So, and I won't be gone for very long. So, they're pretty easy to take care of. You know, backyard chickens. I think everybody should get themselves some backyard chickens, or you should get yourself some quail. I was at my being at my friend's house and farm sitting. I was able to see that they had a really neat quail setup, and I've done quail before, but I had issues with predators again with the quail, and it was pretty devastating. But the quail do make a lot of mess because they do poop a lot. So what my friend did here, they built this this little quail habitat, and I would say it's like a probably like a foot and a half deep by probably the same dimension in height, and then this is probably like 4 feet wide here, and they actually have it separated into two stalls. And they use that same hardware cloth. I guess it's either 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch hardware cloth on the inside of there, and then there's a section on the back where the quail don't have to walk on the hardware cloth, and they can kind of hang out there and chill out. X Shock Rock, hello. Hello, right back at you. Thank you for hanging out. So yeah, they have a section where they can kind of just hang out and lay their eggs and not be walking on the hardware cloth all the time. And then there is a ramp at the bottom of this. It's just some of that. It's like a plastic roof material, and when they poop and do their business and everything, that can fall down on this roof material that's put at an angle so that it makes it easy to clean up their little habitat. And another thing I like about this is it's up off the ground so that you don't have anything like snakes that want to come snuggle up to some of the quail. I did have a problem with that. I had a snake eat one of my quail because it was just in a cage that was sitting on the ground, and it's not a good way to do it. So yeah, having some kind of thing that keeps them up off the ground and keeps them nice and safe and protected is really good. And then for management of them, they have these automated feeders and waterers. So they're basically just these tidy cat buckets for cat litter, and they just have some holes cut out of them for a little area where the quail can reach their beaks in there and get all their food. And then there's a cup that's attached to this bucket, a tidy cat bucket over here that has a little cup water, and the water just fills up the cup so that they can come by there and get their water when they need it. And really nice setup, really easy maintenance, easy to take care of. All I had to do was to check if the water level was good, and then if they had plenty of food. And this is pretty much automated. They have probably about 5 or 6 quail in here on the right side of this thing. And I really like how it works. It's a really simple setup, and I think that anybody could go out and set one of these up because it's really simple. So here's a side view of it, and you can see that they just put some brackets, some L brackets, like for shelves on the side of this quail system here to hold up their food and water bucket. And then those just enter in through some hardware cloth on the side, and then they just have some of this sheet metal roofing material at the top. and they have a little separate area that they can go hang out in that's all enclosed, where they can go lay their eggs and nest and doing all that. Uh, let's see. Papa Bert 21. Don't know much about raising quail. How long from egg to frying pan? So that is the cool thing about quail is I think it takes about 8 weeks, but I would check me on that. But they do grow pretty quick. So they are one of those that if you have an incubator that you can, once they reach maturity, that you can get a whole nother flock going pretty quickly. And so if you had a system like this, you could have it in an urban or a suburban backyard setting. I'd even say you could do this on an apartment balcony. The way that she has it set up, I mean, you would just have to make sure that you take care of their waste properly and that you're not annoying your neighbors with it. But they don't make too much noise, and they're really small. They will lay quite a few eggs once they get going on their egg production. And what I like to do is pickle the quail eggs, preserve them, and you know, I was working on trying to make that into some kind of product to sell. Were the pickled quail eggs because they go really good. Like if you're making a salad or like if you wanted to make like a Cobb salad or something like that, you throw some quail eggs in there and it becomes real tasty. Some pickled quail eggs. The process for opening the eggs is can be a little challenging, but they sell these scissors that will just scissor open the top of the egg, and it makes it a lot easier to do at least to cook their eggs. To hard boil them and peel them and do all that takes a little bit more effort, uh, but they're really good. Pickled quail eggs are really great, and they're a livestock that you could keep in a small area, is what I would say. But you definitely want to keep them very well protected. You want to build their shelter habitat really well, and I like this system a lot. I was really admiring this system that they have because it was so hands off and really simple, but very effective. So here's another view of it. So you can see in this picture that there's that roof material at the bottom here that will help their waste just get funneled down from this and put it in a convenient area for you just to scoop up and go add it to your other compost or however you want to finish it, because quail poop, like chicken poop, is really high in nitrogen. If you try to put that manure directly on your plants, it would burn the plants. So you really need to go and put it through a composting process of some kind and let it compost in something. It could really accelerate the decomposition of stuff like wood chips. So if you added some wood chips into it and you put their quail poop into the wood chips, it would help it break down much faster. Um, so that's one thing about their manure that you gotta consider is like you can't go right away and put it on your gardens or anything like that. But yeah, they do grow fast, and they will eat quite a bit of feed. And basically, you can give them the same feed that like you can buy for chickens. It's just like I think they may make like a grain mix for quail, but it's basically the same kind of thing that you can give to like baby chickens because they can't eat the larger pellets that they make for like laying hens, but they can eat the crumbles. So so yeah, I do recommend quail, the especially the breed the Coturnix quail. is what they're called. I think that's they're kind of like a Japanese variety. That's the only variety of quail I'm familiar with. That's the only one I've attempted to raise, and my friends were going to give me some fertilized eggs, and I just forgot to bring them back with me because I do have an incubator, and we were going to split the incubated eggs. So I'll probably go back there and see if I can grab any more fertilized eggs that I can try to incubate, so I can start raising quail again. But all my projects that I have going on, we still got to plant our garden for the season. So I'm pretty far behind on stuff like that. Like that's pretty important to me that we get some food planted and in the ground before it gets too late in the season. We did really good with squash and corn last season. We grew some glass bead corn, which can be used as like a popcorn. So it's like your own natural popcorn that you can grow. It's glass bead corn, and there's some other health benefits from like the stringy stuff in the corn. I can't quite remember what that's called, but you can make like a tea out of that, and it's supposed to have some health benefits. So gonna try to do that again this year. Do the corn and squash, and probably add some beans so we can truly try the Three Sisters garden. But that worked really well for us last season, and we were able to get enough butternut squash that we just finished it like a couple weeks ago. All the butternut squash for like 3 people, having it like every other meal or something like that, and we just harvested so much of it. Yeah, Papa Bert, it was silk. Yeah, it's called silk. You got it. Thank you. Yeah, the silk is supposed to have some medicinal benefits. You can dry it and put it into a tea, I think. It's supposed to be pretty good for you. But let me show you guys what I was up to over at Solo Miner's place. This was the solar panel array that he's got set up at his place right now, and it's in total about 12 kilowatts worth of solar panels, and it did have some issues with it. The mounting system that didn't quite work for the panels that he ordered, and it was the racks were a little bit too, they weren't wide enough for the panels that he got. And so the brackets that hold down the panels didn't go all the way to the end of the panel. So he improvised something by riveting some L bracket pieces of aluminum to the racking system so that it would hold it on to the racks a lot better. But unfortunately, they had a pretty big wind after they got the first row of these set up, and some of the panels got flung off of the racks and were in pretty bad shape. One of them had like a hole straight in it, so that was pretty sad to see. But we tested some of the other broken panels, and it looked like they were creating a voltage. So we were thinking that it wasn't a complete loss with those, and that he would be able to get some power out of them, even though they were messed up, because they create like a sealing thing that can go on the glass to help with the cracked glass. But yeah, that was my job over the weekend up there with Solo Miner, was to wire up all the panels and create all the connections to interconnect all the panels. So I was out there amongst the solar panels the whole time, figuring out the correct connections to put on there. It's kind of like the grunt work part of the job, but I have some experience doing the solar stuff, but I left all the more electrical hookup stuff to my friend that joined me that he taught me how to do all the solar stuff. So he came along on the journey up there to go visit Solo Miner on this install. And so yeah, we got all that done. By the time the end of the install came around, and like I said at the beginning of the podcast, we really should have given ourselves a couple more days. Basically, we had a long weekend out there. Was able to take off work Monday, like for a Monday and a Tuesday, and then we left on Saturday. So we basically had a day of driving to go there, and then a day of driving to come back, which really only left us a couple of days to get everything connected and hooked up and everything. So we went from unpacking the batteries and the inverters and um, checking out all the panels he had mounted at the time and doing all that, getting all that wiring done, getting all the safety stuff in order, putting in the disconnects and all in the combiner box for all the panels and everything. So we were hustling. We pretty much were there from like, I think we would start at like 10 in the morning, and then we worked till like midnight getting everything worked on and doing all that stuff. But we were in such a time crunch to try to get everything done. We probably did make a couple mistakes along the way. Or we don't know exactly how this went down, but the inverters that we ordered were from this company called Sun Gold Power, and there were more affordable inverters for like a larger capacity, and they had a lot of claims on of what they could do. And apparently those were not valid claims because we got everything was working until we hooked up the last bit of solar panels into one of the inverters. And basically there were two 6 kilowatt inverters from the Sun Gold Power Company, and they're supposed to be able to handle like times when there's not a whole lot of sun, and they can feed the batteries and keep them charged from the grid, or they could pull power from the solar. And these two systems are supposed to be able to talk to each other and manage the power and do all this stuff in parallel. Well, we got all that hooked up in parallel, and then it was when we hooked up that last bit of solar panels that it fried one of the inverters, and then the other one failed right behind it. And even with the circuit breaker protections that we had on the inverters and everything, that it still messed up the inverters. So we're going through a procedure with the manufacturers to see if he can get some replacements. If that doesn't happen, I think I'll probably be buying a couple inverters from him, because see if I can repair them myself and maybe get them going myself. But that happened at the very end of the install, and we were both like super pissed off and super disappointed. And like I said, we really should have taken some more time to go through it and make sure we checked and double checked everything before we tried to fire it up, all the capabilities that we believed it has. Trouble is, if you buy some of these things, especially if they're from China, their customer support isn't the greatest and stuff like that. So currently waiting to hear anything about what it would take to get those inverters, possibly send those old inverters back and then get a new set so that we can give it another go. So, uh, so that was a total bummer. Uh, Rondon, when are you going to set up an automated Arduino powered environmental control that does all the menial tasks for you? Uh, well, that might be coming in the future, especially when we're talking about the aquaponics and like the maybe moving the chickens. I know that I'm gonna need some stuff so that I can monitor like all the like I want to be able to feed the fish remotely and be able to monitor temperature and pH and all that kind of stuff. But that will probably be something that I work on in the future on some of this stuff because yeah, to do this farming and to create abundance and stuff, we do have a lot of technologies at our hands now that we can help eliminate some of the labor, especially on people's individual homesteads. We can eliminate some of that labor ourselves, and then if we have stuff like producing our own energy or whatever, that we could use that energy to our benefit and help automate things on our farms. See, Rondon, you're saying you've wired up complex environmental controls professionally for a few years. Well, we should talk, man, because I might need your help with the project because we're thinking about building an underground greenhouse, and we're gonna have to do some geothermal stuff. Um, and figure out a temperature control scheme so that probably with vents and fans that pull through the geothermal and everything, to make that as automated as we can. So that would be pretty sweet. Might even get you to think about if you wanted to come out to Solo Miner's place. Maybe you could come with us and lend some of your electrical skills over to us or something. If you wanted to, maybe that's something that if you were interested in talking with us about, that would be something we might be able to talk about. Because we got to go back. Another thing that happened was a miscommunication between us and Solo Miner. Me and my buddy that went up there to help with the install, that we had a bit of a miscommunication on the wires that needed to get buried from the house that was going to distribute the power out to a couple other buildings. He had a shop in his house that he wanted to get power over to. And you can give some advice. Heading to Georgia probably not going to happen unless it's on the way to South Africa. Wow, are you going to make the break for South Africa? Wow. Well, yeah, maybe we'll ask for some advice along the way on the journey there on getting this install completed. So right now he's sitting with all the panels, everything's wired in to the one building. Like I said, we had the issue with the inverters that are getting sent back right now. So we're waiting to hear back on what's happening with that. And then, like I said, we had a miscommunication on what wires need to get buried. So basically, there's PV wire running like 2 strands of 8 gauge direct bury solar wire going from the house that was going to be distributing power to the other houses. And so that's running to his house and to his shop. So we really need to have, like for being able to run like 240 and all that, there really need to be 4 lines that are buried And then to run the 120 to his house, you need to have that line for, uh, you got your hot, neutral, and ground. So it really needed to be three. So the solution that we're gonna have to go with is to put a separate system in his house. We can use the cable that was already buried, the direct buried cable that's running into his house, and we can connect that up to the solar panel array because we already have the combiner uh, over there in that house that it can get tied into his to just run the solar power over to his place, and then from that house we can distribute power over to his shop as well. We can do that from that house. So he's going to have two systems. He's going to have a system in one of his houses and then the other one of his houses. So, unfortunately, it's going to be more cost with batteries and inverter. But in my mind, it's a better outcome anyway because he's going to have, basically he's going to have two backup systems. So if one goes down, he's got the other one. So that's the way it turned out. Unfortunately, we had a miscommunication there before we went up for the trip. So this time we're going to do like a video conference before we go up and make sure we've got everything nailed down. We've got everything that we're going to need. We can plan on the time that it's going to take better and help him get this project done. So let's see. McPoppy, Rondon. I'm not well versed with solar systems, but I understand the fundamentals pretty well. Yeah, I mean, there's not much to it. I mean, yeah, you can either wire your panels in series or parallel. You got to make sure that the voltage coming in is going to be, not surpassing the voltage of the inverter system that you spec out. And you just gotta protect with fuses and circuit breakers. Make sure that's all protected. We set up a manual transfer switch that is wired into different fuses on the fuse box in the panel, and so yeah. I mean, it's really not that bad. You gotta figure out all that stuff. Yeah, I think I'm gonna suggest us putting in an automatic. Well, I mean, we already wired up those manual transfer switches, but we're gonna need to put something on the breaker panel. Make sure there is something on the breaker panel so that if the grid goes down, that it's going to cut the main power. It's going to cut the main breaker, so you're not backfeeding to the grid. So either a lockout or something like that. I know with the system that we set up at my folks' place here, there's just a manual lockout so that you can't run the generator circuit until the main. You won't be able to run the generator onto the panel until you have the main shut down. So there's just a lockout on the panel that'll keep you from being able to fire up the generator if if the main is flipped or whatever. So, but you're right. I mean, the automated transfer switch is probably the way to go instead of the manual. That way you don't have to think about it. So that will probably be something I suggest. It's that way they don't have to think about it. If the grid goes down, that it'll just flip over. And I think one of the inverters that we're looking at has that capability for his house. The Solarc, I think it's Solarc 15K. The whole thing is interacting with the power grid is kind of a bitch. So Um, but if if you got a connection to the grid and you can use it to help top off your batteries in days that you don't have a whole lot of sun, it's useful for that. I almost would prefer just having just run your critical stuff on a few circuits and then have a separate panel. I guess just a separate panel for it, really, and just be totally independent from the grid and just connect into a generator or something like that. Um, so yeah, we got more to do on this project. It's going to be another probably another couple months till we go back there because he's got to get his batteries in for the other system, and then we got to see if we can get some those inverters replaced. So lessons learned on that one. We went out there and really needed a little bit extra time. But we had everything hooked up. We were so excited. Everything was working. And then at the last hour, we tried to hook up everything so that it would have the full capabilities like that was advertised with the inverters, and just something went wrong, and everything fell apart from there. We tried to repair it, but apparently it was more than just the internal fuse that blew in the inverters, and it was a real disappointing. But we gave it our best. We were working as hard as we could to get that whole system up and running, and we just couldn't make it all happen. Here are the goats that I was milking over this past weekend. They are Saanen. I guess they're called Saanen. Is a breed called Saanens, and that was a lot. That was a lot of fun, especially trying to catch the goats. And they were a little difficult for me to go and grab because if they really don't want you to milk them, they will put up a pretty big fight for you, not to try to milk them. So I was able to get a little bit more friendly with them by offering them some goat treats, and by the final day I was there, I was only there for 2.5 days milking, but on the final day of milking, they were coming up to me more than they were in the beginning, so they were pretty skittish of me in the beginning. So yeah, my friend tagged all the ones that were more friendly, and the more friendly milkers. So they were all the ones that were used to the routine of getting in the stanchion and getting, they get the shredded beet pulp that with molasses added to it, so it's like a sweet treat for them to come up there and get in the stand, and they get rewarded for going up there and getting in the stand and being behaving and everything. And then after I got done milking them, I would give them another goat treat so that they were, happy to go through this process and they weren't, freaked out or anything. So I did my best with that. I didn't get a whole lot of milk from them, basically enough to keep the little bottle baby goats alive. And but anyway, I learned a lot during that process. They were happy that I could stay there and watch over their animals for them, so they could go on a vacation, short one, but they were able to get out of the house and not have to go and do their farm responsibilities for a little while and get to have some fun. So it was good for them and good for me to get to learn this new skill. And I think I might be going back over there to help out every now and then because she does have a lot of goats that need to get milked and could probably use a hand every now and then. So, all right, guys, I got to wrap it up here for tonight. Thank you for coming to hang out with me. This is I just wanted to get on here and do a stream and kind of give you guys an update on everything that I've been doing, so I didn't go another week without having a stream. So thank you guys for following along and listening. Thank you to the folks that were watching out there on Theta TV. and everybody in the chat, Crimson Clad and Rondon and Gabriel. Thank you for joining tonight. Appreciate all you guys. We'll see you guys next week after I get back from seeing my grandpa. I should be back next Tuesday for another episode, and I'll probably go more in depth into I'll just share my story about going to see my grandpa, and maybe what I can get out of him being 100 years old. He's kind of losing some of his mental capacity now, but he's doing fairly well for somebody that is just turning 100. So yeah. Anyway, we'll see you guys next time, and have a wonderful week, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.